Welcome to the Words That Change Lives podcast, helping leaders, coaches, and small business owners to 10 times the impact of their message. Join us as we delve into the art of powerful language, enabling you to speak with unwavering honesty, communicate authentically, and create a lasting impression with every word.
There's a talk out there in the ether of the internet by the incredible author Elizabeth Gilbert. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called something like The Flight of the Hummingbird, The Curiosity-Driven Life, and it was delivered on a Oprah Winfrey Super Soul show a few years ago. And this talk has always stuck with me, and it's something I reference a lot, and it's included in the notes so you can watch it yourself. Essentially, this talk epitomizes what this episode is about today. Essentially, it goes against the notion of we follow one path of talent in our life and we set ourselves and we laser in and we stay in our zone and we keep the blinkers on and we double down on the one thing that we're good at and we follow that path and we follow that path. Well, sometimes life doesn't work that way, and it doesn't mean that we're bad or not talented. It actually can turn out really, really well for us. Sometimes our core stories aren't linear. The story of our life and business experience is not one path, is not one mission. It's, as Elizabeth calls, like a fun house of trapdoors and mirrored hallways and wrong turns, and each of those steps is important, and each of those steps contributes to the experience, the expertise, the life experience and the path we've walked that lead us to where we are today. And I couldn't think of someone in terms of that I've worked with or that I know that actually this is such a great example of more than my guest on today's podcast episode, which is my guest and previous client, the amazing Lisa Sheerin. So Lisa founded Speak Proud as an executive public speaking coach, helping her clients in corporate roles and those running businesses to embrace public speaking in order to accelerate their confidence and careers. And through our work together, I supported her in making that come to fruition in terms of articulating her expertise through her Speak Proud expert method, which is absolutely fantastic. And Lisa helps unblock fears around public speaking using proven performance tools and techniques. And where does she get this from? Well, this is where the nonlinear story comes in, because Lisa's actually a trained actor with over 20 years experience working in theatre, film and as a voiceover artist as well. So she's had notable appearances including Royal Court Theatre and Raindance Film Festival, but she's also an accredited coach with the International Coaching Federation. And as well as that, she is a spinning coach at Third Space Health Clubs. And this myriad of experience here does all come together, believe me. But you will hear how it comes together through a non-linear approach in her core story and the discussion that we have today. So this episode is for you if maybe you might be in a rut at the moment. You might be a bit stuck and you might be thinking, is this career or business the one for me? Or you might be at the beginning of your journey of starting your business. You're not sure which niche that you should be in based on your experience and you're a bit confused. Or you might be a leader in an organization that's wondering about the next step. Or you might be someone that constantly belittles yourself or beats yourself down because of this hummingbird life, which is what Elizabeth Gilbert refers to it as, that you've picked up nectar from flower to flower to flower that's contributed to where you are today. So I hope you enjoy this one. I really enjoyed speaking to Lisa about this, and I hope it sparks some thoughts. Please do get in touch, hello@helenpackham.com if it does, and tell me what you think. So, in order to think about our core stories and how they might not be linear, and that's okay, I guess we need to start at the beginning. Lisa, let's go back to your childhood and
the starting point of your core story and the hopes and dreams that you had at that time. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Helen. So I wasn't a particularly loud child. I was quite shy. And once I got to the age 6, my mum put me into drama classes and I got a taste for performance. And I really enjoyed it. And I was brought to drama school every Sunday for 4 hours from the ages of like 6 to 11. And it was great. You know, I got to sing, got to dance, got to act and explore that side of my personality, which until that point had been quite untapped. And yeah, there's one particular memory that I have of when I was 7 and I was in Cinderella. I was playing a fairy. There were 6 of us on stage and we were doing a fairy dance. And there was a black box in the middle of the stage that puffed the smoke from when Cinderella would transform from her rags into her riches. And I was dancing backwards and I tripped over the smoke machine and I fell into the orchestral pit, landed by the feet of the pianist in front of a live audience of, I'd say, around 200 people. You know, that was pretty humiliating. I remember somebody in the audience saying, "Is there a doctor?" And I was carted off, you know, in a wheelchair to the ambulance and to the hospital. But then the next evening, there was nothing broken, thankfully, but my arm was put in a sling. And then the next evening I went back on the stage, you know, with my left arm in a sling and my right hand carrying the pumpkin. And, you know, that whole thing of the show must go on. I really believed in that because I loved it so much. And I didn't have any, didn't have really any real embarrassment about the fact that I did that because I was so young. So, you know, that imposter syndrome wasn't there. And that continued on into my teenage years. Although my secondary school wasn't a huge advocate of the arts, I did my best to sort of keep it going with doing like outside classes and stuff. And then I went to drama school when I was 22. And I was determined. I knew that this was something I was good at and that I relished. So I applied. And for the first 2 years, I didn't get in because it's extremely competitive. And that didn't shake my confidence neither. I thought, well, I'll just have to go away and do the work so that I can get in. So I spent, you know, my part-time work money. I was working in a call center. I spent my money basically having monologue classes and vocal classes and audition technique classes on the weekends. And even on the third round, on the third year, I snuck out of my family home to go to Amsterdam by myself to audition for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. That's where they were holding their European auditions. And I didn't tell anyone because my parents were not super, super into me doing this. But I was just absolutely relentlessly determined to go to train to be an actor. And so on the third round, or the third year, I should say, I got into that school and I got into 2 in London. And, you know, I just thought, right, well, now I'm set. I am literally set. I've done it. I've gotten into 3 schools. I've got 2 scholarships. I've got my pick of the one I want to go to. And here we are. You know, it's surely is all uphill from here.
Right. There's so many things that you share there that I just want to pause on, because you talk about that childhood tenacity, that when we're younger and we haven't experienced what comes later, we have this natural resilience, this natural tenacity and confidence, inner confidence that doesn't have an imposter, that just means go, 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 right?
Yeah.
So much so that you were so determined that you snuck out of your parents' house. Yeah. How old were you then?
I wasn't like a teenager. I think I was like 20. I was 20 or 21 because it was a Sunday afternoon. EastEnders Omnibus was on. My dad was in the front room. I literally had to walk past him. He had the door open. I just opened the front door. I didn't tell them where I was going. And I just closed the door, got the tube down to Victoria, got the coach to Dover, got the boat from Dover and landed in Amsterdam at 6 a.m. on a Monday morning. It was raining. I had nowhere to go. This is before smartphones. I just had an A to Z of Amsterdam. And I sat in a posh hotel for 4 hours just eating to kill time before my audition. And then I was very brave. I was naive. I turned up by myself. It was a man that opened the door and I presented 2 monologues to him and we had a conversation and I left. I was very naive and I was very, very lucky that nothing happened to me. And my parents thought I was staying at my best friend's house. You know, I was of an age where there didn't need to be checking every 2 minutes. But
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
back within the 24 hours. But it was just the fact that I just was like, I'm doing it. I'm doing
I
it.
get it. I get it. And that is such a beautiful and inspiring drive and passion to have. This was your passion.
Yes.
This was your absolute passion.
Yes.
And you were determined by hook or by crook to get into these schools, right? And you did, and you achieved that. And as you said, you thought you were set.
Yes.
You thought, that's it. I've done all this graft.
Yeah.
I've been so dedicated.
Yeah.
I've got all of this experience already. This has been since I was a little girl.
Yeah.
I'm in. It's sorted. But as we know, this industry is brutal, right? What was the reality, and how did you come to realize the reality?
Oh gosh, it gives me it just makes me emotional thinking about it because of the way that you've just shared it, because I really didn't think that it would be the way that it would be. And my mum had kind of warned me, and I didn't really listen to her, because when you're younger, when you're determined to do something, I don't regret doing it because I feel like I fulfill what I set out to do. But it wasn't, it just wasn't all roses, So it's a 3-year degree, and it was very vocational, which means every day, Monday to Friday, in from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m, practical learning. So not theory, not like a university where you're sitting down writing, very much up on its feet, doing voice work, movement. And then by the second year, we started to look at text and doing excerpts from, really amazing plays. And I never missed a day. And I had struggled with my voice in the first 2 years, and I worked on that with Alexander technique and working with my vocal teacher. So by the time it got to year 3, I felt I was in a very strong place. I hadn't missed a day of school. So, I was so up for it. But the third year is the year where there's 3 plays for the whole year, and then you're going to be in 3. So in the first play, I didn't get the lead, and I thought, oh, okay. And I was getting these like smaller character parts, and I thought, okay, my turn will come in the next term. And then in the next term, I got a part. It was Mistress Overdone in Measure for Measure. And I thought, okay, she's a sex worker. And I thought, And then the costume they were putting me in was quite provocative. But it was my first time. And I thought, oh, I'll just enjoy it. I'll embrace it. And I thought, okay. And then in the third term, I got given all these small parts again. And I wasn't given the lead again. And I thought, what's going on? And then when I was given parts, they were either like sexually provocative or kind of like they were character parts. I can look back now and see they were sort of showing my range, but there was this element of my sexuality coming through because of the way that I looked. I mean, like all young women in that profession were that I'm only going to speak about back then, which is like 20 years ago, were viewed really on their looks first and then their talent. So I was quite busty. I had like long blonde hair. I'm like this young 20-something-year-old. And I started to see, oh, okay, I'm being viewed in this way. And so the pivotal moment was 3 agents came in one day and they sat on a panel and we had to go in and present a monologue. And I turned up wearing a very loose jumper and loose black trousers because I didn't want my physique to be shown. I wanted them just to hear my words, see my acting skills and not look at my body. But in the dress rehearsal, our mentor, she's a famous actress, she was mentoring us. She took me to the side and she said, Lisa, you're not wearing the correct clothing for your physique. You need to go home and put something on that shows off your physique in the best light. And I burst out crying. I'd been holding it in and I was like, I don't want to be viewed sexually. I really just want to be known for all the work I've put in and not whether I've got a big pair of boobs and like blonde hair. And she was amazing. She was very supportive. She said, look, I'm top heavy and I've got long, voluptuous, curly hair and I've played queens, I've played sex workers, I've played doctors, magistrates, mothers, it doesn't matter. But when you're young, again, you don't have the foresight to be able to, or the hindsight to be able to know that that is true. So it was a very pivotal moment because she did support me and she made me realize that I was more than that. But when I left drama school, I was still getting put up for those kind of roles. I had this kind of shining moment before I left drama school where they put me in a 4th play because somebody dropped out and I played an Irish missing tooth, pipe smoking gypsy. Because I had complained to the head of the school that I wanted a part that was meaty and that could transform me and show my ability. And because of that, I got lucky that this girl dropped out and I got to play her part. And I literally blackened my teeth. I was smoking a pipe on stage. I looked filthy. I was playing this Irish gypsy from like back in the day. And I got signed from it. I got an agent from it. My parents saw it. And I was like, yes, like this is why I came here. So that was when I left and I signed with an agent. But then like I kept getting cast as, these kind of sexualized characters. And it just became tiresome after a while. I was like, I don't think I'm being cast on my ability as to what I can actually do, but just more on what I look like. It was a letdown and it was an eye-opener. And it wasn't just me, by the way. I mean, I had lots of gorgeous female friends who were in the same boat. Some of them, it was even worse for them, oh, you're just a model, you're, catalog, or you can be the girl of the Gillette advert. And it's like, we've been to drama school, like we've actually trained as actors. Why are you not treating us like the men? They didn't have this issue. So yeah.
Just a question on that, just to go slightly off on a tangent before we come back to the story. Do you honestly think that has changed 20 years later within the industry?
No. I think everybody is more aware of it. I think everybody's more aware of it because of social media. I saw Taylor Swift do a 3-minute video yesterday calling out a record label about how she's been treated as a woman. So everybody around the world gets to see it. So I think the awareness is there of how young women can be treated in the entertainment industry, but I don't think it's changed yet. No, that the top, it's still mainly men at the top, right? It's still mainly.
And aesthetic is so important still, particularly in commercial endeavors such as adverts, television,
yes,
things like that. I guess maybe more on stage in theatre. I don't know. It might be slightly different. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, everybody in my year most of the females had this issue. And I mean, I was told, the roles that I want to play, I'm just going to have to wait until I'm older. So maybe the naivety of youth didn't allow me to accept that fact. But even still, when you're auditioning for some agents, and then my bra strap, my best top, accidentally fell down during my monologue, and then the feedback from the male agent was, "Can you make sure that your bra strap's not on display when you're doing your monologue?" It's like, is that the only bit of feedback you've got to give me? Is that my bra strap was showing because my vest top accidentally fell down on the side of my arm? That kind of thing. It was like, come on! I didn't come here for 3 years to hear that as feedback. So yeah.
So I'd imagine that's sort of on the early stages of the journey. You're starting to get a more realistic picture of the real state of affairs within what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I know, having worked with you, one of your pit moments. I'd love you to share that pit moment and that realization that you had within that moment.
Okay, so we're fast forward now quite a few years, and I've done acting work. I've done theatre, mainly theatre. I did a feature film and some short films. And so, I was in the industry and networking with people, but not networking as much as I should have been when I look back. But I had this opportunity where a friend of mine at the time, he'd written a script, a film script that had a London premiere back in 2016. And he invited me to come to it. And the lead actress that was in that was Meryl Streep. So, he said, come and, meet the cast and come and support my film. And I said, well, of course I'm going to come. And, it's a great opportunity. And I was really, really excited. I mean, this was not, it was like, oh my God, Meryl Streep's going to be there. There was some other American actors that were quite famous at the time that were in it. So I was super geared up. I thought it was going to be an evening of, performer camaraderie. I thought I'd be talking to the cast at the after party and of course networking. Right. But we watched the film and then we had the party afterwards. It's more like not like a party, just a chit chat. But I very, very soon realized that evening that most of them didn't want to be there. They had to do the networking. They had to go abroad. They had to promote the film. But when I tried to speak to them, they were like quite short with me. They just, when you just get an energy, you're like, oh, okay, this isn't what I expected. But I thought, well, I'm still going to speak to Meryl because this is like quite an epic moment. And, maybe there'll be like this moment of enlightenment where she's going to say something to me, but you just create these fantasies in your head and stories of like, oh, when you meet somebody that you really admire, that it's going to be like this. So I went up to her and she was very polite. She was formal. She was smiley, I remember. And I told her that I loved her in the film Doubt, where she played the nun. And I just kept it very like low key. I wasn't like gushing or anything. I was just like, oh, I thought you were great in that and well done for the film. And she was like, thank you. And very sweet, like nothing off about it. And then her daughter came over and said to her, okay, mum, we need to get you back to the hotel now. And she walked off. I don't know what happened in that moment, but just a penny dropped for me because I realized I'm not in this film. I haven't written this film. I'm here as a guest of my friend. These people don't care who I am. They don't care about anybody here. They care about getting paid. Yeah, I've given this so much hype, so much attention, so much validation, and so much of myself to them is what I felt. And this is building up over many years of validating people in the industry who I deem to be more successful than me, therefore more important than me, that when she walked off, it felt like a huge anticlimax. I was like, okay, she didn't care because she doesn't know me. And so I went to the toilet and I'd had one or two drinks. I wasn't drunk, but I think the alcohol brings it out. I had a little cry in the toilet, but it was an unexpected cry. I mean, I wasn't going there that evening intending to cry. And I just sat in the toilet and I thought, what am I doing? Because all the years leading up to this, a lot of what I would say is I could have been more successful. I could have worked a lot more if I had put myself out there and believed in myself once I left drama school. And even though there would be knockbacks and people saying no to, there's one thing about being resilient, but there's also about being visible. The same way that those actors at that film premiere, they had to be visible. They had to be there, Hollywood stars or not, they had to be visible. I should have been doing that years and years ago with my own work. But what I used to do is I would do a play and then I'd run out the door and go home. I'd be at an after party of a film I'd been in, and then I'd go home. I didn't want to promote myself. I just wanted to be good in my work, just like I was at drama school. And this side of me, it didn't need to be seen or heard. And there's many reasons for that. Being a young woman, not working more than working, feeling a bit sexualized, thinking, do I have a voice? What do I have to say? I haven't made it yet in the way that back then anyway, people would deem to have made it if you went to America and did a huge movie or was at the National, the RSC, because I hadn't done any of those jobs. It's like, well, who am I really, So that was years and years of those thoughts in my head. And then when I finally met, apparently the queen of screen acting, and she walked off, I just thought, oh God, what am I doing? This is silly. It's too much validation on others, and the self-belief needs to start coming from myself rather than waiting and hoping that other people are going to give it to me.
What a realization in that moment. Unexpected, as you say.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the topic of this podcast episode comes in, because, up until now, this is a pretty linear core story. Mm-hmm. This is, I had the childhood dream. I had the passion and the determination and the resilience to make it to drama school, to get all my qualifications, to get an agent, to star in different things, to start learning about the reality of things, to face rejection. And then, I guess, to feel the kind of weight of it all come crashing down a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's at this point where the twists and turns of your story come in, and the non-linear nature, which has led you to where you are today, which we'll talk about in a minute. But tell us a little bit about that windy, twisty path from that moment and what happened.
Yeah, so that was 2016, and now we're in 2024. And I could never have imagined in 2016 that I am where I am today. I can assure you of that. I think many actors will tell you, when you truly love the craft, it's almost like a drug. It's very addictive. When you work, it's like the best feeling in the world. When the work stops and you're not working, you can feel quite helpless. You can feel quite isolated. You can feel quite like you're not needed, or what, you're not in demand, but it's addictive. And so back in 2016, I knew I felt like this, but I just didn't know what the heck I was going to do beyond this thing that I'd always wanted to do. I couldn't. I sat there at night after night, talking to friends, talking to my partner, being like, what can I do? And I felt, I felt down. I felt stuck. I overate a lot. I would emotionally eat. I was bored. I was bored because I was doing these, I wasn't acting the way that I wanted to be. But the caveat to that is, even though I was frustrated about my acting career and the fact that it wasn't going the way I wanted it to go, I had to survive, right? I had to earn money like all actors. So luckily, I say luckily, my father and mother always influenced health and fitness into our family home. So I've been a gym goer since I was like 15. So when I was at drama school, I knew that I would not always be working. And lots of my friends were doing retail and bar work and leafleting. And I just thought, my goodness, I can't do that. So I trained to be an indoor exercise coach when I was at drama school. And I thought, well, I'll do that part-time because I love fitness whilst I'm out of acting work. So I was just doing it very, very intermittently in the early years. And then I started to pick up more classes to earn more money. And in the beginning, I didn't really appreciate what it was doing for me. But then I really began to take it more seriously. So I started to sort my eating habits out. I started to sort my personal exercise out, because from 2016 onwards, I was like, something's got to change and it's got to come from me. And I mean, I learned this from all the YouTube gurus that are out there and influencers, the Mel Robbins, the Tony Robbins, the David Goggins. I was listening to them and I was like, right, I'm kind of like them in a way, because I'm a gym coach. So I started to reframe what I was doing, which was, okay, it's not just a part-time job that gives me extra money that I enjoy because I like fitness. I'm actually going to take it more seriously. Meaning that when I go into my classes, I'm going to go in with more of an intention rather than I'm just earning a bit of money. And my personality, the music that I play, I started to build up quite a following in London. I was teaching, at one point I was teaching up to 14, 15 indoor cycle classes a week. That's my main niche in the gym, is indoor cycle spinning. And I was working in clubs all across London and then getting really good feedback, right? So I'm helping my members to become more positive in their mind and bodies by the way that I coach. And then they were giving me feedback being, we love you, we want more, 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 more. So that was empowering me. And I just didn't realize it in the early days. So it's just nature, if you're feeding out positive talk to others, it's kind of like, it's self-talk, isn't it? It's like, okay, well, if I'm telling them that, I need to start believing it in myself. And then I started working at Third Space, which is a really, really high-end gym in London. And they reinforced to me how important my job was, because everybody that works there works at a very professional level. You don't just turn up and teach a class, stick a CD in and then leave, or what used to be, or just turn your iPad on. You go there and you give 5-star service to the members. So how can you not start to live and breathe that when they're kind of insisting that you be that? And it was amazing, because I was like, oh my God, I'm working with some of the best health professionals in London. I want to be part of this crowd, the process of osmosis. So that was the start of beginning to retrain my mind. It really came from exercise, but intentional exercise and consistency of it that helped me to switch my mindset up. Because when you get your body right, your mind naturally starts to align and you begin to feel more empowered and you can take on challenges. So if I didn't get an audition, or I don't know, I was doing some classes and I was enjoying them, but I wasn't so attached to it. I was like, you know what, there's a light beyond this tunnel. So that was one of my surprising jobs that I still do to this day, but very part-time, because it's been like my anchor for my career and my self-talk really since 2016.
Yeah.
And then I have another job, which again is even more surprising. Honestly, I do children's entertaining. And I've been doing this job since 2005. So again, I was at drama school and somebody in my year must have saw something in me and were like, come upstairs, they're doing an audition for children's Christmas parties, come and audition. And I was like, what am I doing? And I went up to this room and the next thing I was jumping around like a monkey or something. I don't know. It was something to do with a Christmas monkey or something ridiculous. I'm quite small in stature. I've got quite an expressive face. They must have just seen and thought she will work with kids, work really well. So that was in 2005. And again, initially, was just doing it for the money. I wanted to be this grand actor. Why would I want to do kids' parties? But the money pays well. So I was doing it initially to support myself. But as the years went on, like anything that you do repetitively, like the exercise, like the parties, through years and years and weekend of doing it, I learned to love it. I developed my own style. I moved away from the whole idea that a lot of actors have, oh, it's children's parties. How can you do that? It's like, actually, no, it's an excellent form of keeping your performance skills at a high level. You have to improvise. You have to entertain people that don't know you every weekend. You don't know what situation you're going to be thrown in. Children are very honest. If they don't like you, they'll let you know.
The harshest crowd in some respects.
You have to be, and you have to be really flexible. And, you just have to deal with different situations. But I created my own style. And so for the past, I'd say, particularly the past 8 to 10 years, I've been in some of the most unique, unusual, amazing places and situations through this line of work. But as I've been doing that, yes, it's paid well, but it's the reason why I'm here today and I'm talking to you and I have the business that I have, because we're now talking 20 years on from when I left drama school. I don't have a fear of speaking. I don't have a fear of making a fool of myself. I'm very flexible. I'm open-minded. I'm curious. And that all comes from those 2 jobs. Children's entertaining it's taken me to orphanages. It's taken me to church halls. It's taken me to parks, into people's family living rooms, onto super yachts in Saint-Tropez. I've entertained in 5-star hotels. I've literally been everywhere doing this job. So that's almost 2 decades of performing every weekend. And I never, ever would have thought I would have been doing that when I left drama school and wanted to be, this great Meryl Streep actress. It's been incredible.
And when you share your story, I always am reminded of a talk given by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Right.
It's called The Hummingbird Life.
Right.
And I do believe it's still available online. It is a fantastic keynote talk. And the concept of that talk is really the topic of this podcast episode, in that a lot of people think that they're born, they acquire a specialist skill early on, and they are set.
Mm-hmm.
That is it. That's their career for life. And it's one trajectory, it's one specialism, and it's going to be a ladder that they climb.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, we've broken away quite a lot from tradition of that now, because there's many ways that you can build a career with your own business and things like that. However, there are a lot of people that feel that way, or are lucky enough maybe to have that very linear trajectory. Whereas Elizabeth Gilbert talks about the fact that we can be hummingbirds, that we may start off in one place at one flower, but then we will move to another flower and another flower and another flower, and we will collect nectar from each of those flowers. And the nectar that we collect is just as important as the last. And it builds on the skills that we have, and ultimately will lead us to a place where you are now.
Yeah.
So tell us, Lisa, where are you now?
Well, although I did those 2 part-time jobs alongside acting, when once it got to COVID, everything stopped for me, because I've always been self-employed and I couldn't do those jobs. So I had to think, okay, what am I going to do now with, like you said, with all this nectar that I've collected? COVID was a blessing for me in that sense. It gave me the chance for the first time in my life to stop moving, because all my jobs are incredibly physical, and sit down and think, with this nectar that I've collected, what can I do with the next part of my life with all these skills I've gathered? Because at the end of the day, I did an acting degree for 3 years and I've gained a lot of skills from that training. And I knew that I could do more than just need to be on a stage or behind a camera. I was like, what else can I do? And I'm a group exercise coach for 16 years, and I've been doing children's entertaining for nearly 20 years. So how can I bring these together? And the word coach kept coming up serendipitously in conversations, in emails, this word coach. And well, basically, to cut a long story short, I helped a Spanish lady whose English wasn't very good to deliver a sort of coaching workshop to some staff in Burberry in 2019. She needed an actor to deliver her workshop. And it was motivational because it was about combining martial arts with teamwork. I mean, I went into it knowing nothing. I got called in from a friend. They need an actor. Lisa, you're into fitness. You're the go-to girl. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I stood up on that stage in Burberry. I mean, it was in a small room. It wasn't a conference, alongside her. And with using her method, I was do sort of like motivational coaching. And I thought, oh, I really like this. This is martial arts. I don't know anything about martial arts, but I love health and well-being and fitness. And I believe in, in that and how that helps people in all areas of their life. So that was kind of like the springboard. And that was in late 2019. And then obviously there was COVID. So I sat down, I thought I think I could be a coach. What can I do though, specifically with coaching? Oh, I know what I can do. I can help individuals, but particularly women, particularly younger women than me, to embrace public speaking from a much earlier age than I did. I mean, I know I was an actor, but I'm not talking about in the job now. I'm talking about in oneself, in self-promotion, in being visible, not just when you have to present something and then that's it for a year. I'm talking about building that self-confidence from as young as possible, really, but with, as an adult, and coach women to overcome imposter syndrome with speaking. And I've coached men too, but I mainly coach women because that's who I am and that's who I really do align to. So I work as a public speaking coach, and my company's called Speak Proud. And the women that I've helped, they're mainly all run businesses or they work in corporate jobs. And, they're actually at varying degrees of their career. I've helped women who are just starting out, who are now like heads of departments, and I coach females who are executives. I coach females who are middle management. I coach females who are running their own businesses. It's all the same thread. High achieving women, because I class myself as a high achiever, even though I would never have thought that about myself 20 years ago, because academically, it was always seen as if you were academic, you're a high achiever. But I see, when I look back at everything we've shared today and my tenacity and determination, I would call that high achieving. I wanted to achieve high. But you can be high achieving in your mind. You can be clever. You can be intelligent. You can want to achieve whatever that is for you. But if that imposter syndrome and that lack of self-belief and that voice, that judgment is telling you, yeah, but you don't really want to share it with everyone, do you? I mean, best you just keep that to yourself. Who's going to know? How are you going to succeed? And particularly the world that we live in now, it's non-negotiable to be able to speak up and promote yourself in any given moment, because public speaking has moved away from standing up on a stage and delivering a presentation. We're in 2024. Public speaking is a video on your social media promoting your business. It's going to a networking event in the evening and speaking to maybe 5 men who are of a different sector to you and being able to promote your business with confidence. It's being able to push back on difficult conversations. It's being able to write a social media post. It's being able to put a video on your website. It's about being able to go to the CEO of your company and say that you want to be promoted. It's about speaking to your manager and saying that you're being treated unfairly. It's all of this is public speaking. It's speaking up. And so that's what I get my passion from, is helping women to be able to, move beyond that so that they can push forward in their career and not do what I did, which is to sort of sit back and hope that I would be seen, hope that my work would just carry me through. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't.
I love what you do. See, we've worked together for the last few months, and in that time we worked on a couple of core things. One was your core story.
That's right.
Of which you've been talking about today. But another thing that we worked on, which I do talk about in previous episodes, and I go through the details of more of how you can create your own in previous episodes, is creating an expert method.
Yes.
So tell us about the expert method that you created in our time together.
Yeah, so Helen, you brilliantly helped me to fine tune what it is that I already do. So before I met you, I was calling myself a public speaking coach, and my company's called Speak Proud. With working with you, you have really clearly helped me to define what it is that I do. So I don't call it coaching anymore now. I call it my method, my Speak Proud expert method, and it's in 3 phases. And again, it's not linear. The first phase can be Speak Proud inner talk, where I would focus with a client on their inner confidence and the dialogue that they're saying to themselves. Because if you're not confident internally, and if this self-talk isn't positive and you're reinforcing every day that you're able to do what you want to do, then there's no point in doing the other 2 parts. So we start with Speak Proud inner talk. Then phase 2 is Speak Proud state of mind is part 2. And that's where I bring in my performance tools and techniques to share with my clients. So we're looking at vocal exercises, body language, mindfulness work to be able to get you into that performer state of mind. And not just, again, when you're standing on a stage, but in your everyday life, small little helpful tools that can begin to really build that confidence muscle. And then the third part is Speak Proud Impact, where we would work together and my client would deliver a presentation to me. We would role play a difficult conversation. And I've had clients invite me to their offices where I've watched them speak to their colleagues, and then I've delivered feedback afterwards. So it's in 3 stages, but as I said, it's not necessarily linear. So if you feel like you're already confident with your inner talk, but you just wanted some tools and techniques, we could just do stage 2. If you felt like you were super confident, you could come to me and we could work on stage 3. But now it's a method. Part 1, part 2, part 3. And for me, it's brilliant because when I show it to my clients, they can pinpoint exactly where they are, and then we can go from there. And you help me to create that. So yeah, thank you.
No, of course, it's an absolute pleasure. But also, if anybody doesn't know, and if anybody hasn't listened to the previous episodes where I talk about this, the end result is a visual representation of what your method is, and you've created that. So there's a really great eye-catching visual infographic in certain terms as to what these 3 stages are comprised of, that you share. You can share at networking meetings, you can share in inbox discussions, you can share when you're putting proposals forward. But that also then unpacks to a suite of offerings that you can deliver depending on the need of the group or the individual, that are all completely aligned.
Yes.
And you're having some, you're currently, all sorts of things are happening in terms of exploring that with people in relation to their needs, right?
Yes. I mean, just to add to that, I showed that to a client last week, the infographic. And before I even got to say what it was, she went, I need all of that. So it was just that's how clear it is. And before then, you tell people you're a coach, I do public speaking, but it's a very, public speaking is, everybody relates to it instantly. Oh, you do that, I need help with that, is what I normally hear. But we then, like you say, you have to unpack it, but which part? Because today it means so many things to be able to speak up. So when I have an infographic, the client looks at it and they immediately go, oh, I just need that bit. Oh, I need all of it. So it's been great for that.
So I think, in conclusion here, this is a really great example of how we can be the hummingbird, right?
Yes.
You can have a story wherever you are in your story. If you're listening to this, you might be where Lisa is now, right? You have been on that twisty turny journey, and you actually you're clear on that expertise that you can use now. You might be a little bit further back. You might be in that confused stage where you think, gosh, my story has so many twists and turns. What do I do with it? Well, just know that it doesn't have to be linear, right? It doesn't have to be a timeline of events that's perfectly stacked up. And Lisa, thank you for coming on here and sharing your story, and really honestly and vulnerably and beautifully and passionately as well. And hopefully this is inspiring to people that you can create a fulfilling business or career, even if your story has lots of twists and turns. Tell us what you think. I'm at Helen Packham on Instagram, Facebook, Helen Packham 1. You can connect with us both on LinkedIn and let us know, or you can email hello@helenpackham.com and give us your thoughts. What's your story like? What is your timeline like? And I just want to end this episode by asking the question I ask all my guests, which is, what words have changed your life?
You'll meet 100 different people who will describe you in 100 different ways. Don't dwell too much on the kind of impression you make. Remember, there are 1,000 paintings of the sun, but only one that rises and sets each day. Etka Samara.
Oh, that is amazing. And there's so many things I'm thinking about with that. I'd love to hear what that means to you.
Well, after many years of trying to be everything to everyone, I've realized that I can only be me. And my validation and my self-belief comes from the fact that I know that there's only one of me, like the sun, that rises and sets each day. And I would love anybody that's listening to this to remember that when you go into that place of comparison, imposter, judgment, worrying about others, needing the validation of others, there is only one you, like the sun. And the sun doesn't care what other people think. It goes up and it goes down each day. And it would be so good for us all to start to think like that more about ourselves so we can let our inner confidence shine.
Oh my God, I could not agree more. That is so powerful. I think that's one of my favourites so far. And I think that's a perfect note to close on. So thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome, Helen. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Words That Change Lives. Please rate, review and follow on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really means the world and helps me to reach more people so that we can all harness the power of our words and change lives for the better.